Let's talk about burden of proof. Now, this is why districts do not take parents to court that often or to fair hearing, because the petitioning party must prove. They must, actually, the word that they have is persuade. They don't really have a burden of proof as much as they have a burden of persuasion. So if the parent files against the district, then the parent has to provide that persuasion. And I just realized I am blocking some of that. Let me move over here. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's take this down a little bit. Don't too much. How's that? Okay. I'm assuming by your silence that it's fine. Okay. So the parents must persuade the court that the district did something wrong. Therefore, the school district, your obligation then is to defend your choices based on what you knew at the time. Their obligation is to prove negligence, keeping in mind that in most cases, in order to prove negligence, they would also have to prove a layer of intent. And so that's where we talked about before with the IEEs, the independent education evaluations. The only way that really is going to come back as very, very negative for you is if you intentionally did something you shouldn't have done. You lied in a report. You knew this would help the kid, but you wanted to leave it out because you didn't like this kid or you didn't like the parent. That kind of intentional stuff. So keep your personal feelings out of it, out of special ed, because that's where the trouble will start. Okay. The burden of proof. All right. Again, it has to be based on the information that was known at the time, not on hindsight. All right. Years ago, when I first got into special education, a small procedural error would automatically trigger a denial of FAPE ruling. Okay. You missed an annual due date by a day. The judge will say that's a denial of FAPE. Parent wins. Small things like that. Maybe the IEP wasn't filled out completely. Maybe there was a misstatement. Maybe the teacher had, the note taker had noted the wrong teacher saying something. Nowadays, that's been revised, especially after the revisions of 2004. So procedural flaws and failures these days do not automatically find a denial of FAPE. They have to be overt. They have to be very big. In fact, a procedural violation would only constitute a denial of FAPE if it actually did impact the child. All right. If it significantly restricted the parent's involvement, the teacher's ability to teach the child or to know about the child, if it caused the special education teacher not to be able to provide reasonable and expected services. It's where the procedural violations used to really come into play was manifestation determinations. Any procedural problem on an IEP, and if you look at an IEP, you will find mistakes. In fact, I highly encourage you to review an IEP or two every month from at least one of your SAI teachers and provide some constructive feedback once you're competent enough to do that. As director, I do that with all of my SAI teachers. I aim for 2 IEPs a month from every teacher. I don't always make it, but they do get feedback and on procedural issues mostly. So, and that just makes us all better. I learned something by reviewing the IEPs. They learn something, and a lot of times what I find and think is wrong might not be wrong. In fact, a lot of times there was a discussion that went on that supported that decision, that what appears to be a violation of procedural of a procedural element, but it didn't get noted in the notes section. So that in and of itself is a problem. All right.